One of the things I miss a lot that I'm not able to do when I'm traveling, when we're traveling like this, is to be able to grow your own vegetables, to do your own gardening, planting plants, flowers, and all that it's connected with nature, because you need to be there, you need to be putting water and taken care of, and when you are traveling you don't stay enough time in each place to be able to do that. So in these weeks, in these months that we have been back in Italy, I've been doing a bit of that, and I miss it so much.
We love plants, we love flowers, trees, and we are planting not just because we are trying to reduce our carbon footprint, and it's really important, but it's so satisfying seeing something growing and just taking care of something. So in this time that we spent here in Italy, we start to plant something, and I would like to show you what we have planted. We plant some tomatoes, zucchini, artichokes, potatoes, strawberries, raspberries. We have some grapes. So I would like to show you something really big. We make our own compost. We didn't expect this kind of grow.
They are giant.
The plants are giant. And look this zucchini. Dada! Look at me, look at the zucchini. And we have planted different species of zucchini. So this is the normal squash zucchini.
Then some dark zucchini.
With flour. And flour is really good if you fry the flour. It's something that we eat as appetizer in Italy. Delicious. And look at this. These are my favorite one. Probably are too big now. But I try
They're massive.
to reach this one. Oh my god! Look at this! Wow. Look at this!
So big.
Che bella! Dobbiamo mangiarle. Look all the tomatoes here. They are still green here as well. Then on the other plants there. Lot. Still small. You probably may ask why you have planted artichokes, because artichokes are my favorite food.
She loves that.
I love artichokes. I can eat artichokes every day, every time. I just love artichokes. And Luca prepared all this. He made everything flat. And what is this plant? Beautiful.
Rosemarine. So big, it's so good. We use it to give flavor to a lot of food.
Oh. We love to gardening, we love to plant. This is something that we miss when we are on the road, because you need time, you need to take care of the plants, of the trees.
You have to give them love, attention, and time.
But when you plant a tree, it's something that stay, I don't want to say forever, but it's something that you make
Lifetime.
for a good reason. And we went to visit a festival called CinemaAmbiente Festival that we visit for 5 or 6 days, and we have learned a lot about this planet, about the climate crisis, about how important is our attitude, is the planet,
and what the global heating is causing as well,
and what we can do. So we would like to share with you some images, some footages about what we have learned during these days.
team and I have collected visual evidence of the epic changes sweeping the Earth today. I've seen how trillions of tons of glacier ice are melting. I've seen that meltwater enter the seas and flood the coastlines of America. How burning coal, oil, and gas cooks the air we breathe. I've seen how that altered air heats our forests until they explode in fireballs and homes burn down. An inalienable right to clean air, clean water, and a stable climate.
Il tuo presidente dice, I don't believe in it.
How do I feel about him? I think he's a bad man and a criminal. And it's a very, very, very sad time. The central answer to all of this, which is as follows. If we can be a force for the negative, we can also be a force for the positive. We're all in this together, and we can do things in a positive direction. And we don't point fingers outside at other people, although I just pointed a finger at Trump. But we can look at ourselves as being active agents of possibility and possible improvement. We have thousands of pages of beautiful white papers explaining what we have to do to go forward. We know what we have to do. We just need to get government and corporate interests to be moving in the correct direction. We are living in the middle of that. To me, what the metaphor that I think of is in America, you think about back in 1870, that there were 40 million bison, buffalo, living on the plains. And in 10 years, they were basically all wiped out. That happened whilst people were alive, people were aware of it, people were watching it, they knew what was going on, and yet it still happened. Then 30 years later, passenger pigeons went from being hundreds of millions to zero. And we have to look very clearly and with a great sense of urgency and anger to recognize that we're living through an historical period of that sort of very, very, very radical environmental change. And we must do everything we can to wake up the rest of the world. And there's one word, and it starts with a V, at least in English, which is vote. Now, unfortunately, your last vote didn't go in the right direction, but that's the most powerful tool we have.
Hey everybody,
Hi, we are ready to watch the movie Youth Unstoppable.
here in Torino at the CinemaAmbiente, the event.
Environmental festival. And it's a great movement about the green generation and Fridays for Future. It's the first documentary movie that we are seeing about youth, about young people that are saying something, they are saying what they are thinking about all the climate change, all the political situation.
And what they're doing, how they're acting. So
We can't wait to see the movie and to see also the director. It's a girl from Canada, and probably we can interview her after the movie, and we will share everything with you.
I want to tell you my story. It's also the story of a lot of other young people like me who were worried about the future and decided to do something about it.
I am fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. Do not forget why you are attending these conferences. You are deciding what kind of a world we are growing up in. Please, make your actions reflect your words. Thank you.
I can't really see what's going on yet. Oh, now there's me on a screen. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. Definitely Greta was not the first. She has been the most successful. There have been young people all along the way who have been standing up and demanding action and really stepping up to the challenge of this crisis. But I think why Greta is so is really moving people right now and is having the success that she is having is because we have 10 years left. And the urgency that has been there all along has now reached a new peak of importance and intensity. I think before then we were like, okay, it's going to be in 20 years and 30 years, whatever. But humans are really bad when it comes to thinking about the long term, even if it's something as short as 30 years. And so I think with Greta, she was there at the right time. People started freaking out over the 1.5 degrees Celsius report that came out last fall. And I remember being on a panel with her actually at COP24 in this past December, right before really she kind of exploded. And she was this lovely, intelligent, humble human being who was in it for all the right reasons. And for that, I'm really excited that she's been getting the coverage she has, because whether someone who's just started now or been within this movement since the beginning, I think for everyone who is fighting in this fight, it's not only about, talking about fossil fuels and energy, it's also about what kind of people do we want to be? What kind of people do we want to be as we're moving throughout this crisis and figuring out how to adapt? Because we have a real opportunity to embrace each other and to embrace our relationships to each other and to the planet, and that's really beautiful. There's two questions within that. One of youth activists within this film, that age bracket and their relationships with the older generation, but also how I was interpreted as a young filmmaker. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, yes, it's, of course, it's that time of your life where there is this tension. There is tension with the older generation. But I don't know if that really applies to this, because our generations had to grow up faster. Not because we wanted to, because we're looking at an issue that is huge and overwhelming and abstract and affecting the rest of our lives. And the people who are supposed to represent us have not been representing us and have not been taking our voices seriously as the next generation, when this is really, the whole idea of intergenerational equity is so deeply a part of this conversation, because young people now have to lead. But there also has to be a recognition that we can't just throw all adults under the bus, because if that was the case, then that means we'd have to start over every time there was a new generation of a movement. And some of my dearest friends and mentors are older than me, and I've learned from them, and they are my dear friends. And so age is part of it. There is that tension, but I think it also really is the fact that, like, the world is ending and someone had to stand up. And even though we're kids and teenagers and going through this angst, I think we felt like we had to, because there was no other option. For me as a young filmmaker, I mean, I'm also a female director, which is literally 2% of directors are women. So, I mean, as a young director, of course, some people wouldn't take me seriously, but that just means that I found the people who did. I found the mentors and the collaborators who did look at me and see someone who was dedicated to what they were doing and crafting, and that I am a filmmaker, and I always have been, even if I was younger. There are always going to be obstacles, and I think one of the biggest things you can do is to figure out, I mean, really just how strong you are as an artist and as a person, because there will always be people who will tell you no. There will always be people who will say you can't do this. But that just comes with the territory when you do anything new, or when you try to put yourself out there in a way that hasn't been explored before. So yeah, it has been hard, and there have been rough patches, but thankfully I've been surrounded by mentors and people who've believed in me. And I think that's also important to acknowledge, is that whole idea of mentorship, and that idea of finding people who will back you, even when you don't know if you can support or believe in yourself. And that's a huge thing, whether it's film, whether it's any industry or field that you're in. Mentors are so crucial. Like I said, it's like I'm a person as well. I do feel things. There are times when I find it very difficult to either watch the film or to think about climate change because I've been around it for so long. And there's actually this new term that has been created by psychiatrists, which is called environmental grief. And I heard that and I immediately had a sigh of relief because I've been talking more and more with the people that I work with, whether it's in the movement or people who just keep up with the subject. And there is a lot of despair, and there's a lot of depression, and there's a lot of emotional angst and to physical pain. And it can be a bit overwhelming because, I mean, this is really heavy stuff. We're literally talking about dealing with the idea of our own mortality as a species and also the suffering of other people. And, you know, are we getting to the point where we're deciding what cultures and what people are worth saving? And that's horrifying on every level. And I don't ever want to have to make that decision, but it seems like the worse it gets, the more that we are going to be coming up against that despair and that hopelessness. But I try to think about, and my friends and I try to think about the fact that whatever happens, we will have lived a life that we feel like we can say we did everything that we could. And we feel like we always chose love, even in a time of fear where people want to divide each other and, you know, be horrible to each other, for lack of a better word. I mean, look at the world right now. Look at the U.S. It's absurd, and sometimes I just hysterically laugh because it's like, really, this is what we're doing. This is how we act in a time of crisis. So I feel like I'm not sure I answered your question, but I mean, you always have to try and find the hope and love and the compassion, because I feel like sometimes that is all that makes up our shared humanity. And so in this moment where it is incredibly overwhelming and scary, and there are people suffering, and I do feel guilty, as I should, you know, we need to try harder than ever to find those connections to each other and to embrace each other and to transform our fear into action and to transform our misunderstanding into looking for love and knowledge, because sometimes that's all you can do. We need to completely change. We're currently trying to find solutions, or at least a lot of people are trying to find solutions for this crisis within the society that created it. And so I feel like in a lot of ways we have to rethink how we live with each other, the way that we live, the things that we buy, the food that we eat. All these are part of the solution that need to be taken into consideration. And so on one hand, we do need extreme radical change in order to survive as a species. And it seems like the only people who are pushing for that are groups and environmental groups that are non-governmental. But at the same time, that is the world that we live in. And sometimes it feels like if we could put the right people into power that would then be able to legally force corporations and big business like fossil fuels and whatnot to actually clean up their act and to, you know, have us all shift to renewables, that we would have a fighting chance. So it's hard because we need all the things. We need the groups outside of government who don't have the same strings attached and are more radical to change minds and to create this consciousness shift and to pressure governments and corporations to change. But at the same time, a lot of people still live within that way of being and thinking. And we need the right people in government, people who actually give a shit about the future, to pressure corporations and people into changing, because sometimes it feels like that might be the only way to make corporations actually change, because I don't know how else to dismantle them without like going into full-blown acts of, you know, radicalism, and I don't know if that's the right way or not. We need all of it. We need all of it. We're at the point now where it's like, If billionaires want to come to the table and are like, yes, I've been living a lie and I want to put my money into renewables and changing the world, great. If we have fossil fuel execs who are like, I want to change over to renewables and whatever, here's the infrastructure for it, great. I think some people think that maybe I'm a sellout for saying that, but I don't think so, because we're now at the point where we have no time and we need everyone, and we can't not accept people's help if in the past we were enemies, because we have 10 years. The biosphere is dying. Nature is dying.
Time is running out and we have to do something.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So awareness is the first step. You actually can't take action until you become aware. That's why these films are so important, these documentary films. Look at The Cove, for example. The Cove movie was made by a guy who never made a film in his life. But he surrounded himself with people who know more than he does. And that's the way to do it. Good luck with your trip.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much.
Thank
Thanks for watching. If you like our video, please subscribe to our channel, thumbs up, and comment below to say what you think about this video.
And what do you do for the environment? From now on till the end of 2019, we will be traveling through all Central America and South America till the beginning and almost the half of 2020. So if you know somebody who is working to make a better planet to the environment, if there is any activist, you know, any scientist, any organization, or normal people who are doing something about this, please write us in the comments, because we would love to document, to interview them, and to give the possibility and the opportunity to share with all of you what is going on in our beautiful planet.
And remember, we need to take action right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you next time.
See you next video really soon. Ciao!